Good morning. Welcome back to Political Science with Charushil. Today is day number 3. So video number 3. We are going to discuss nation building and its problems. The third problem being the organization and reorganization of states on the grounds of language. One thing I would like to apologize for my hoarse voice. आपको पता चल रहा होगा कि मेरी आवाज़ अभी खराब है. But we have to complete the 50 videos. So let's begin. Before trying to understand how the linguistic reorganization of India happened, let us understand the first level of integration which happened in India. So after independence, what happened? The princely states and the British provinces were joined to create a consolidated nation. So between the year 1947 to 1949, you have Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and you have VP Menon. And what are they doing? They are trying to create a new India. Okay, a formal political integration of states is happening. Now, that time, what was it composed of? We had former British Indian provinces which were directly ruled by the British Crown, and they were 17 in number. Okay, they were further subdivided into major governors provinces and chief commissioners provinces. So you had 11 major governors provinces and 6 chief governors provinces. 11 plus 6 is total 17 British India provinces. What were their names? You had Bengal, Bombay, Madras, United Provinces, Uttar Pradesh comes from this place, Punjab, Bihar, Central Provinces and Berar, Madhya Pradesh comes from here, Assam, Odisha, Northwest Frontier Province, Sindh, they both went to Pakistan, Delhi, Ajmer, Merwara, Coorg, British Baluchistan went to Pakistan, Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Pant, Piploda. These were the 17 British India provinces. Besides this, we had what? Princely states. There were around 565 princely states. All right. They had some autonomy with reference to their domestic affairs, but major affairs like foreign affairs or trade, these defense, these were controlled by the British. So that is why it says over here, they were ruled by Indian princes but under British paramountcy or British suzerainty. And in the end, we have some areas which were under foreign control, which is the French and the Portuguese areas. So in the next slide, I'll be showing you some of the princely states and the foreign controlled areas. Let's have a look. This in front of you is a map of how the integration happened. So in yellow, you have the Union of Princely States. In pink, you have the British India provinces. All right. In green, you have Chief Commissioner provinces. There were more, by the way. This is not the exact map. This is an AI generated map. So I have tried to do the best thing possible for you guys. So you can pause and have a closer look. And then let's go to the next slide to see what happened in between the time period I'm going to talk about. So, till 1948, integration of princely states has happened. But what happened between 1948 to 1950? 1950, the first constitution is formed. Let's see what happened. Now, the process of nation building did not come to an end with partition and integration of princely states alone. Now, what was the major challenge before India? The challenge was, how do we draw the internal boundaries of the Indian states so that there are no clashes between these states? This was not just a matter of administrative divisions like the Britishers did. The boundaries had to be drawn in a way so that the linguistic and cultural plurality of the country could be reflected without affecting the unity of the nation. So unity in diversity had to be maintained. During colonial rule, the state boundaries were drawn either on the grounds of administrative convenience or simply coinciding with the territories annexed to the British government or the territories ruled by the princely powers. These were the three criteria as to how the Britishers divided state boundaries. Our national movement had rejected these divisions as artificial and had promised the linguistic principle as the basis of formation of states. In fact, after the Nagpur session of the Congress in 1920, what happened in the Nagpur session of Congress? The principle was recognized as the basis of reorganization of Indian National Congress Party itself, which means now what will happen? Many provincial Congress committees were created by linguistic zones. So each linguistic zone had their respective congressmen. By congressmen over here, I mean people belonging to Indian National Congress, not legislators, okay? Which did not follow the administrative divisions of British India. In 1927, the Congress declared that it was committed to the redistribution of provinces on a linguistic basis. So the Congress had committed itself to the linguistic reorganization of states, and it reaffirmed its stance several times, including in its election manifesto of 1945 to 46. The demand for linguistic reorganization of states goes back to 1886. The first linguistic movement started in 1886 in a region which is now called Orissa. The movement gained momentum in later years with the demand for a separate Orissa province by bifurcating the existing Bihar and Orissa province. So create a separate province which is called Orissa. Due to the efforts of Madhusudan Das, who is known as the father of Odia nationalism, Madhusudan Das, the movement eventually achieved its objective in the year 1936, that is even before independence, when Orissa province became the first Indian state pre-independence to be organized on the basis of common languages. Now let's see in the year 1948 what Mahatma Gandhi had to say. He said, if linguistic provinces are formed, it will also give fillip to the regional languages. It would be absurd to make Hindustani the medium of instruction in all the regions, and it is still more absurd to use English for this purpose. Okay, and just a few days before his assassination, he said, the redistribution of provinces on linguistic basis was necessary if provincial languages were to grow to their full height. So he was in favor of recognizing regional languages and linguistically reorganizing the states in India. But the national leadership had second thoughts on the issue. Immediately after independence, due to factors like partition, a warlike situation happening between India and Pakistan, other economic and law and order problems which were existing in independent India. Therefore, Nehru said what? He said, I've repeated this quote again and again, first thing must come first, and the first thing is the security and stability of India. That is our priority. So therefore, what happened? Immediately after independence and partition, things changed. Our leaders felt that carving out states on the basis of language might lead to disruption and disintegration. Some people might be dissatisfied, protests might happen. It was also felt that this would draw attention away from other social and economic challenges which the country was facing at that moment. The central leadership decided to postpone the matters. The need for postponement was also felt because of the painful memory of partition and the fate of princely states not being decided yet. Okay, so this is what was happening during that time. In the year 1948, a major commission was formed called the Dhar Commission. All right. So on 17th June 1948, the President of Constituent Assembly, which is Rajendra Prasad, he set up a Linguistic Provinces Commission, also known as Dhar Commission. All right. The committee included S.K. Dhar, who was a retired judge from Allahabad High Court, Jagat Narayan Lal, who was a lawyer and member of Constituent Assembly, and Panna Lal, who was a retired Indian Civil Service officer. In its 10th December 1948 report, the final report, the Commission recommended that, and I quote, the formation of provinces on exclusively or even mainly linguistic considerations is not in the larger interest of the Indian nation. Therefore, it recommended the reorganization of provinces of Madras, Bombay and Central Provinces and Berar primarily on the basis of geographical contiguity, financial self-sufficiency and ease of administration. The Commission rejected language as the primary basis for reorganizing states. So it rejected language as the primary basis for reorganizing states. Why? Because it believed it would weaken national unity, it would encourage regionalism and create administrative difficulties for India. So instead, it recommended the states should be formed mainly on administrative convenience, economic viability, and national security. Okay? So like the fears the national leadership had during that time, which was the fear of partition, communal violence, and integration of princely states, which we discussed in the previous slides, this fear carried on, and therefore they never promoted the idea of linguistic reorganization of states. Let's see how Ambedkar interjected. So, on 14th October 1948, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar submitted a memorandum to the Dhar Commission supporting the formation of linguistic provinces, especially the formation of Marathi majority Maharashtra state from Bombay as its capital. To address the concern of national unity, he suggested that the official language of every province should be same as the official language of the central government. K.M. Munshi, who was a Gujarati leader, he opposed the incorporation of Bombay in the proposed Maharashtra state as Ambedkar had proposed, and opposed the linguistic reorganization proposal, saying the political ambition of a linguistic group can only be satisfied by the exclusion and discrimination of other linguistic groups within the area. No safeguards and no fundamental rights can save them from the subtle psychological exclusion which linguism implies. After the Dhar Commission of 1948, we have the JVP committee. Now this committee consisted of Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and the Congress President Pattabhi Sitaramaiah. Now what did this committee state? It stated, public sentiment is insistent and overwhelming. We as Democrats have to submit to it, but subject to certain limitations in regard to the good of India as a whole. Therefore, the committee advised against the immediate linguistic reorganization of states like the Dhar Commission. It argued that India's first priority is what? National unity and stability. Linguistic states might do what? They might increase separatism, they might encourage provincial loyalties, and might weaken the newly independent nation. Therefore, the committee emphasized again and again on security, political integration, economic development of the country. All right. But it made one important concession. It said that if there was a public demand for linguistic states which could eventually be considered, the JVP committee delayed linguistic reorganization, but it did not completely reject it because it believed that if there is a public demand for it, it might consider it. Now, we come to the year when the Constitution of India is passed. The year is 1950, but a few developments before this year. The new republic was declared to be a union of states. The first schedule of the draft constitution was discussed in the Constituent Assembly on 14th and 15th October 1949, a few months before the constitution was passed. It listed the states and union territories of India. The first schedule, as amended by the drafting committee chairman, was adopted as part of the constitution on 15th October 1949. Therefore, the first constitution of India has a first schedule which has your states and union territories. Now, how was the division done? So, the constitution of 1950 is distinguished between three main types of territories. You have Part A states, Part B states, and Part C states. These are the main ones. And you also have one particular area in Part D territory. Let's see. Part A states, which were the former governor provinces of British India and were ruled by governors appointed by the president and had elected state legislature. Which were these 9 states? Assam, Bihar, Bombay, Madhya Pradesh, Madras, Odisha, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, and West Bengal. Then you had Part B states, again 9 states, which were your former princely states or unions of princely states. And they were earlier governed by Raj Pramukh, and they also had an elected legislature. These states were Hyderabad, Jammu and Kashmir, Madhya Bharat, Mysore, Patiala, East Punjab States Union, which is PEPSU, Rajasthan, Saurashtra, Travancore, Cochin, and Vidya Pradesh. Then you have Part C states, which have 10 states. They included both former Chief Commissioners provinces and some princely states. and they were governed by Chief Commissioner appointed by the President of India. These states were Ajmer, Bhopal, Bilaspur, Coorg, Cooch Behar, Delhi, Himachal Pradesh, Kutch, Manipur and Tripura. And in the end you have Part D territory, where you had one territory, which is the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, administered by the Lieutenant Governor appointed by the central government. Let's have a look in a map which I created. Now, this is a map created by me on the basis of the Indian Constitution 1950, Schedule 1. Now, as we discussed in the previous slide, Schedule 1 is comprised of 4 types of states: Part A, Part B, Part C and Part D. Part A has 9 states, which are your former British provinces, and they have an elected governor and a state legislature. Part B are your former princely states. Again, they are 9 states and they are governed by a Raj Pramukh. Part C are your former princely states and provinces, British provinces combined. They are governed by the Chief Commissioner and they have 10 states over here. And Part D has only one union territory or a centrally administered territory, which is your Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and governed by a Lieutenant Governor. So this is a map. You can pause the video over here, have a close look. I have also provided a list of the 4 ABCD states or territories. Have a look. So far, we have discussed what happened from 1948 till 1950. We had the Dhar Commission report of 1948, the JVP Committee report of 1949, and lastly, the Indian Constitution of 1950. Now, let's see what happened from 1952 to 1953. A famous movement called the Vishal Andhra movement or the Andhra movement, which acted as a turning point. Let's see how. So in the early 1950s, protests started happening in the Telugu speaking areas of Old Madras. अब Old Madras में क्या क्या चीज़ें आती थी, कौन कौन सी territories आती थी? You had present day Tamil Nadu, parts of Andhra Pradesh, parts of Kerala and Karnataka. So the Telugu speaking people of this Old Madras province, they started demanding a separate Andhra state from the Madras state, कि दोनों को separate कर दिया जाए, एक separate Andhra state create किया जाए. Now look at this figure. Poti Sriram Mullu, a Gandhian activist, went on a fast unto death demanding a separate Telugu speaking state. What happened? After 58 days of fast, he died in 1952. His death triggered massive protests, strikes, public unrest in Telugu speaking areas of Old Madras province. This Vishal Andhra movement, as the movement for the creation of a separate Andhra state, demanded that the Telugu speaking area should be separated from the Madras province, of which they were a part of. Nearly all the political forces in the Andhra region were in favor of linguistic reorganization of the then Madras province. The government finally agreed to the creation of Andhra state in the year 1953 from the Telugu speaking districts of Madras state. This provided that linguistic identity had become a powerful political force that could no longer be ignored. Tamil Nadu was created as a Tamil speaking state, and the Andhra case directly led to the appointment of the States Reorganization Commission. Now we are going to study about the States Reorganization Commission of 1953. Before going to SRC, which is the States Reorganization Commission of 1953, pause the video over here and just have a close look of how the Telugu speaking regions of Old Madras province were demanding independence from the Madras state and to be created as a separate Andhra state. Alright, this is a closer look at the map. So just pause the video over here and have a look. We finally reached the point where the States Reorganization Commission was made. Alright, so after the Dhar Commission and the JVP committee, now we have another commission called the States Reorganization Commission, also known as the Fazl Ali Commission. I'll tell you why. Now the government appointed the SRC, which is the States Reorganization Commission, in the year 1953. Its members were Justice Fazl Ali, who was the chairman, Hridayanath Kunzru and K.M. Panikar, 3 members. The commission submitted its report on 30th September 1955, which is approximately after 2 years. The commission's recommendations were accepted and with some modifications, and they were implemented in the act which is going to come in 1956 called the States Reorganization Act of 1956. The act provided that Indian state boundaries should be reorganized to form 14 states and 6 centrally administered territories, also known as union territories. Now, what did this report argue about? What did the State Reorganization Commission talk about? The report argued that British India had governors provinces, lieutenant governors provinces, chief commissioner provinces, all with different powers and status. The commission believed that this structure was outdated and unsuitable for a democratic India. Therefore, India's provincial boundaries were created by the British were mainly focused on the imperial convenience, which is administrative convenience, strategic control, administrative expediency, rather than cultural or linguistic unity of the country. The report further emphasized that Indian states were not independent sovereign entities like the American colonies before federation. Parliament had the power to create new states, alter boundaries of existing states, merge or divide existing states. The report noted that under Article 2, 3 and 4 of the Constitution, Parliament could reorganize states without even requiring a constitutional amendment. This strengthened the idea of a powerful Indian Union. Moving on. This is a possible image of the States Reorganization Commission of 1953. Again, AI generated. Have a look. The main recommendations of States Reorganization Commission's report. First, accept language as the legitimate and democratic basis for state formation. Okay, so it believed that linguistic states could improve administration, could strengthen democracy, could help people participate in governance in their own mother tongue, in their own language. Recommendation number 2, rejected the one language, one state formula. What is that? The Commission did not support the idea that every language group must have its own separate state. Rather, it believed that it should be balanced and viable states, not purely linguistic ones. Reorganization must balance language, national unity, economic viability, administrative convenience, and security. All these 5 things should be balanced. It said it is neither possible nor desirable to reorganize states on the basis of the single test of either language or culture, but that a balanced approach to the whole problem is necessary in the interest of our national unity. And the balanced approach means you are focusing on all these 5 things before reorganizing states. Third recommendation, abolish the part A, B, and C states, to abolish this idea. Fourth recommendation, 3 union territories should be there, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Delhi and Manipur, and part C and D territories should be merged with the adjoining states. Fifth recommendation, the report traced how the Indian National Congress came up and agreed to the idea of linguistic reorganization. There were 3 developments here. First, 1920 Nagpur session, it accepted linguistic provinces. 1927 Congress resolution supported Andhra, Karnataka, Sindh and Utkal states. 1928 Motilal Nehru report said what? Governance in the people's own language would improve democracy and education. But we all know that after independence and partition, Congress leaders became cautious about linguistic states. Okay? Why? Because of fears of separatism, instability, communal division, which made leaders hesitant to reorganize states immediately on the grounds of language. Some more facts. During 1950 to 1956 period, other small changes were made, like a small state of Bilaspur was merged with the Himachal Pradesh state, and Chandler Nagar, a former enclave of French India, which we covered in the previous videos, was incorporated into West Bengal. Okay. Now, we have discussed the Dhar Commission, the JVP Committee, and the SRC, which is the States Reorganization Commission or the Fazl Ali Commission. 2 of them are commissions, 1 is a committee. What is the difference between a commission and a committee? Let's discuss that. Then I'll go to the last act, which is the States Reorganization Act of 1956. Difference between a committee and a commission. Meaning, a committee is a group of experts or members formed to study, investigate, or advise on a specific issue. A commission is a statutory or a constitutional body created by the government to perform specific functions or inquiries. Nature of authority. For committee, it is mostly advisory in nature. Recommendations are not binding. For commission, often possesses quasi-judicial or decision-making powers. Recommendations may carry legal or administrative weight. They might be implemented. Then reporting structure. Committee usually submits reports to a ministry or a department or an executive authority, while commission generally submits reports to the legislature or the constitutional authorities for wider deliberation. Duration and scope. Committee usually temporary and task specific. Commission can be permanent or long term with the broader institutional responsibilities. Some examples are JVP committee, and over here we have Ghar Commission or the Fazl Ali Commission. Now let's go to the final act, which is the States Reorganization Act of 1956. The States Reorganization Act of 1956. So after the SRC's recommendation, this particular act was passed by the government in 1956. What happened after the act was passed? 14 states and 6 centrally administered territories were created, and it abolished the old Part A, B and C declassifications which was there in the Constitution. Okay. So what happened? This act was enacted on 31st August 1956. Before it came into effect, an amendment was passed, which is the 7th Amendment. This 7th Amendment did what? The existing terminology of Part A, B, C and D states was altered. What happened? Part A and B states, this terminology was removed and they were now simply called states. And Part C and D, again this terminology was removed and now they were simply called union territories. Okay. Let's see some of the provisions of the Act. First provision. States were reorganized mainly on linguistic and administrative lines. Examples. Telugu speaking areas of Hyderabad were merged with Andhra to create Andhra Pradesh. Malayalam speaking regions from Travancore or Cochin, Malabar and Kasargod Taluk were combined to form a separate state called Kerala. The Act moved the Tamil speaking taluks off. These were all the taluks, alright, to create a separate Tamil speaking region called Madras. Similarly, Kannada speaking regions from Bombay, Hyderabad, Madras and Coorg were merged into Mysore state, which is later called Karnataka. Alright, so all these states were formed on the basis of linguistic and administrative lines. Moving on. Second major provision of the Act, several entirely new states were created by merging old provinces and princely states. You can pause the video over here and have a look. These were the examples. Third provision, the Act separated the islands of Lakshadweep, Minicoy and Amin Divi. So now we know a separate union territory was created by the name of these islands. Later it became Lakshadweep. Okay. Fourth provision. The Act amended the first schedule of the Constitution, which means what? Officially redefining Indian states and union territories. The important change we have already discussed, which was removal of the old classification of A, B, C and D states. Alright. Fifth provision. The Act carefully reorganized political representation, courts, services, finances, and not just territories. The reorganization was administrative as well as territorial. Like redistributed seats in the parliament and state legislatures, created new constituencies through a delimitation commission, reorganized high courts and judicial jurisdictions, redistributed assets, debts, pensions and government employees between states, adjusted scheduled caste and scheduled tribes representation according to the new boundaries. Thus, this shows that the government planned the reorganization as a complete restructuring of governance, not merely as a boundary change. It shows the reorganization was administrative, constitutional, political, and not just geographical. The last provision of this Act, it created something called zonal councils to improve coordination between states and to reduce regional conflicts between states. The government realized that the reorganizing states could lead to disputes and coordination problems. The Act therefore established 5 zonal councils, which is your northern, central, eastern, western and southern. Each zonal council included chief ministers of member states, 2 ministers from each state, representatives of the central government, and the Union Home Minister acted as the chairman. All right. What were the functions of the zonal councils? To discuss border disputes, to handle linguistic minority issues, to improve interstate transport, to coordinate economic and social planning, and to resolve problems arising from reorganization of states. Now, these are the 5 zonal councils, and these are the states included in them. So, Northern Zonal Council had Punjab, Rajasthan, Jammu and Kashmir, Delhi and Himachal Pradesh. Central had Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. Eastern had Bihar, West Bengal, Odisha, Assam, Manipur, Tripura. Western had only Bombay state, and Southern had Andhra Pradesh, Madras and Kerala along with Mysore. This is the list of the 14 states and 6 union territories created after the Act was passed in 1956. Pause the video over here and have a closer look. Now, in front of you is a table talking about the arguments in favor and against linguistic reorganization of states. Though we have covered them in different slides, but there are 2 things I want you to focus on in this video. Okay. Now, W.H. Morris Jones in his book The Government and Politics of India 1987 said, the newly fashioned units, it is true, have a self-conscious coherence, but they are willing, thus equipped to do business with the center, to work as parts of a whole, that's India. Rajni Kothari in his book Politics in India 1986 said, in spite of the leadership's earlier reservations and ominous forebodings by sympathetic observers, the reorganization resulted in rationalizing the political map of India without seriously weakening its unity. If anything, its result has been functional in as much as it removed what had been a major source of discord and created homogeneous political units which could be administered through a medium that the vast majority of the population understood. Indeed, it can be said with the benefit of hindsight that the language, rather than being a force of division, has proved a cementing and integrating influence. Okay. So you can pause this video, just see the arguments in favor of linguistic reorganization and some arguments against. Now, in the next slide, we will cover up some facts, and then after that, I'll show you 2 maps of India in 1948 and India in 1956. Some important, interesting facts about reorganization of states. Now, the acceptance of principle of linguistic states did not mean that all states immediately became linguistic states. There was an experiment of bilingualism also done, especially in Bombay state, consisting of Gujarati and Marathi speaking people. After a popular agitation, the states of Maharashtra and Gujarat were created in 1960, with Bombay city being included in Maharashtra and Ahmedabad being made the capital of Gujarat. So 1960 में क्या हुआ था? Bombay का division हुआ था. You created 2 different places, Maharashtra and Gujarat. Okay. In Punjab also, there were 3 linguistic groups. You had Hindi speaking, Pahari speaking and Punjabi speaking groups. The Punjabi speaking people demanded a separate state, which is Punjabi Subha, led by Akali Dal. But it was not granted because Congress felt that the demand was actually for a Sikh majority state dressed up as a language plea. Statehood for Punjab came 10 years later, which is in the year 1966, when the territory of today's Haryana, which is Hindi speaking, and Himachal Pradesh, which is Pahari speaking, was separated from the larger Punjab state, which is Punjab speaking. Chandigarh, the newly built capital of United Punjab, was made a union territory and served as a joint capital for both Punjab and Haryana. Another major reorganization of states took place in the northeast part of India in the year 1972. Meghalaya was carved out of Assam in 1972. Manipur and Tripura too emerged as separate states in the same year. The states of Mizoram and Arunachal Pradesh came into being in 1987. Nagaland had become a state much earlier in 1963. Now, language did not, however, remain the sole basis of organization of states. In later years, some regions raised demands for separate states on the basis of separate regional culture or complaints of regional imbalance in development. Three such states are Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand and Jharkhand, which were created in the year 2000. There are many regions in the country where there are movements demanding separate and smaller states still. These include Vidarbha in Maharashtra, Harit Pradesh in western region of Uttar Pradesh and northern region of West Bengal. So movements are still going on. Let's have a look at the map, a historical trajectory of how states were formed in India. Whatever we have covered so far is covered in this particular map. So please pause your videos right now, have a closer look. In this last slide, I have curated a map which is basically a comparison between how India looked in 1956 after the States Reorganization Act of 1956 and how India looks today. In 1956, we all know now, because of the act, 14 states and 6 union territories were created, all right? And in 2026, we have how many states? We have 28 states and 8 union territories. So over here, you can pause the video, have a close look at the map. And on this note, I end my discussion on nation building and its problems. From video 1, 2 and 3, we have covered all the problems of nation building in India. We are done with one subunit of part A of the syllabus. From video 4 onwards, we will begin with the second subunit. For now, thank you everyone. From Political Science with Charushil, bye. Take care.